Furst, and this is my informative speech. So everyone recognizes the fruit in front of you here today. But many of you may not know the interesting history behind the pineapple. So during last Christmas break, I had the opportunity to tour the largest pineapple plantation in the entire world, the Dole Plantation on the north coast of Oahu, Hawaii. And I saw and learned about the history of this fruit firsthand. So everyone's no doubt heard of the pineapple, and everyone's no doubt heard of Dole. But there are 3 points that you may not know about the history. The first is that despite originating in South America, the pineapple didn't actually reach popularity until it got to Hawaii. The second is that the engineering advances and advertising campaigns from the Dole Plantation helped turn the fruit into a global phenomenon. And lastly, the Dole Plantation nowadays takes a much more educational approach with respect to modern-day tourism. So no discussion of the pineapple can occur first without a history lesson. The pineapple originated in South America, and according to the Dole Plantation website, it was brought to Hawaii by early colonizers as gifts of hospitality to the locals. The locals never planted them and seldom ate them because they were foreign and often spiky. They could have been brought as early as 1800, and they were often brought back to the New World as exotic gifts. Enter Captain John Kidwell, an American from San Francisco, and according to the About.com travel channel for Hawaii, he first planted pineapples on Oahu and Maui in 1885. The pineapples flourished in the tropical weather and the frequent rains. But little did he know, he had actually just jump-started an industry that James Drummond Dole would soon come to monopolize. So Dole arrived in Hawaii in 1899, and according to the PBS documentary, The History of the Pineapple, he immediately bought 61 acres on the north shore of Oahu. Realizing the immense profitability of pineapple, the Dole Plantation changed the market in 2 primary developments, canning and advertising. So Dole realized that the majority of his market would have been in the U.S., and needed to find a way to transport this fruit to the U.S. without it going bad. So he pioneered the art of canning his pineapple. He created the first cannery in 1901 on the North Shore. He later moved it next to Honolulu so it could be close to the harbor. Now that his fruits couldn't go bad, he could essentially create as much as he possibly could. But now he had to create a demand in the U.S., as most Americans at this point had no idea how to cook, cut, or even open a pineapple. So Dole and the other pineapple distributors created the very first Dole Pineapple Recipe Contest in 1925. In its first year, it drew over 60,000 entries from the U.S. alone. So according to the food history blog, The History of the Pineapple Recipes, the winning recipe was the classic American pineapple upside-down cake. So now Americans had an endless supply of canned pineapple to purchase, and they now had 60,000 possible recipes to choose from. Demand for this fruit skyrocketed. So Dole responded by purchasing the island of Lanai, one of the smaller islands in the Grand of Hawaii. He purchased all 20,000 acres on the island, staffed it, and built homes for his staff, and turned that into producing 75% of the world's pineapples at its peak, thus crowning himself the pineapple king and crowning Lanai the pineapple capital of the world. So from 1899, when Dole first arrived in Hawaii, to 1930, when Hawaii was producing 75% of the world's pineapples, Dole had become incredibly influential. But nowadays, it takes a much more relaxed approach, an educational approach, to the art of tourism. But if you look at TripAdvisor.com, it isn't even in the top 60 historical sites to see on Oahu. But according to the Modern Hawaiian, a frequently read travel blog, it states that it brings in over 1 million visitors a year to its location. It offers an interesting approach to the history and development of the pineapple, and the plantation itself now includes a much more holistic view of the history of the fruit, rather than simply focusing on the advances of Dole. It now focuses on modern-day planting and harvesting techniques used across the entire world. So if you're like me, when you first learned that you were going to learn about the history of the pineapple today, it may seem not that interesting at all here. But there are 2 primary things that I want you to take away from it today. The first is that when you go to the grocery market, or you go to a store, and you see a shelf of canned pineapples, I hope you'll chuckle. Because however commonplace and simple canned fruit seems nowadays, canning pineapple helped turn it into a global fruit that the U.S. came to enjoy. And second, if you ever go to a restaurant where you see pineapple upside-down cake on the menu, you'll have a bit of trivia to share with people, because you'll know that that was the very first recipe that Americans knew how to create. And that recipe alone turned the fruit from a tableside prop into a beloved ingredient.